20 years ago, a seed was planted and cared for. We painstakingly nurtured it and weathered it against adversity until one day it blossomed and the fruits of our labor began to show. Today, millions have learned, shared, and been inspired by what our community has produced. We proudly served 21 million users from 204 countries in 2019. For our 85,000 technical articles, code samples, and videos, our 450,000 forum questions, and our highly anticipated conferences and events featuring keynote panels, live streams, and industry experts and influencers, we recognize and reward members for their dedication to the community. Through content contributions and mentorships, we ranked number 2,620 in the world with a reach of millions across our social media channels. Thanks to you, our global community of software and data developers grows stronger each day. For more information, visit us at csharpcorner.com.
Good morning and welcome to this another episode of Growth Mindset Show. It's February 11th today, Friday. I'm here outside of Philadelphia. Weather looks nice today. It's getting a little better. I think it's 50 degrees, nice, but we're all stuck in the home. Today we have a special episode. We are going to talk about some new things in .NET, Blazor, and life during COVID and after COVID, how it's going to happen. Our guest is Bill Wolf. Bill Wolf, if you don't know, he is a veteran community leader, and we'll do more introductions a little later. If you are joining us first time, welcome to the show. If you are joining us back, welcome back to the show. As you know that this show is for you. This show is for people who are watching it, and purpose really is to answer your questions, help you grow in your career. If you have any questions, feel free to post comment on where you are watching us from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, doesn't matter. Make sure you post your questions. Welcome to the show. Namaste, Ganesh. You're back. I see a bunch of people coming back. Thank you for joining us back. So today is very unplanned show. We're just going to bring our guest in and we're going to chit chat about the future and the past and the current, what's going on in software development in Microsoft world. That's our focus is today. So let's bring in our guest, Bill Wolf. Hey, Bill.
Hi,
how are you?
Yeah, doing okay.
All right. So a lot of our audience who are joining us, they may not know who Bill Wolf is. You want to start with telling everybody who you are, little introduction and what you do?
I'm just a mild-mannered .NET consultant. Been doing this stuff over 40 years.
So you've been doing Microsoft for a long time.
A long time, yes.
Long time. Probably you said 40 years. That's a lot. Some of these guys who are joining us, they're probably 25 years old.
I remember one of the first conferences I went to as I was getting into community was the Sybase conference in San Francisco. And that was before Microsoft purchased SQL Server from Sybase.
Oh, wow.
And I had just learned how to do SQL syntax. And I never imagined, like 35, 40 years later, I'd still be doing it every day.
SQL syntax. So,
but it works.
Yeah, it works. So if you compare, 30 years, 35 years ago when you started SQL and programming and building software, when you compare that and now, what is the big difference, major difference you see overall?
The biggest difference. Well, I guess the biggest thing is how everybody works online these days. If you think back to the 80s if you wanted to learn this stuff, you went out and bought a book from a bookstore, or you went to a conference and attended an in-person lecture. There were no user group online. There were no Twitters. It was much harder to get the information that you wanted, and a lot of that stuff you had to sort of be self-taught. You get a book, you could try all the examples and teach yourself, and the same with finding jobs. Can you imagine a world in which there's no LinkedIn?
Yeah.
And there is no Indeed to find jobs. People used to call me on a landline phone, and I had to carry business cards all the time, and that's how you got your name around. And today things happen so much faster. The fact that everything is online and you can reach out and ask questions or get answers within seconds. It just I never imagined that we would get to this point, but
here
we are.
Yeah, I remember back in the days when working with Win32 and C++ and VC++, there was no help documentation. You have to look at the .h file and look at the signatures and figure out how to call it from your code.
Yeah, you probably had this as well as I did, but I had a whole wall in my office of MSDN kits with CDs. And the documentation was on those CDs, and we used to put those in our computers and bring up the help screens, and that's how we would go find out how to work with an SDK. Now it's way too easy.
Yeah. So agree. Let's talk about .NET and C#. And I remember it was December 1999. I know .NET is celebrating 20 years anniversary this year now. But it was actually December 1999. One of my friend coworker, he gave me 2 CDs. He's like, hey, check this out. I just got this from Microsoft, and it has something called C# compiler. I'm not sure what it is. And that's where I started C#. It was December 99. When did you start C# in .NET?
Well, we're going to be honest in this talk, right?
Yes. We're definitely going to be honest.
Well, I was heavily in the SQL in the 80s all the way through today. In the 80s and 90s, I was very well known nationally for a product called Revelation. And it was basically a free-form database and very powerful. But it really didn't survive into the 2000s, and that was based on the language PIC, P-I-C-K, and they had something called PIC Basic, and I got heavily in the Visual Basic in the mid 90s into my 2005 realm because Microsoft was really pushing that. And, it was natural for me because of working with this PIC product. So I did a fair amount of that. And I didn't get into C# as much until I'd say, closer to 2010.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then Microsoft launched .NET in 2001. So I guess that's when you really start working with .NET.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I used to I became a Microsoft MVP around, I think it was 2002 or so. Because I was doing I was doing a lot of the user group stuff, since the early 80s.
Yeah.
And I got recognized for my efforts there, and they made me an MVP. And I used to go to Redmond and work with the product team. And back then, it was almost like politics today. They took all the Visual Basic people, put them in one room, and then they took all the C# people, put them in another room, and they weren't allowed to talk to each other. and it took maybe 4 or 5 years before they realized that this is silly. we should work with all the languages as one. And in the MVP community, they started doing that, and they really pushed hard to sort of make parity between the languages.
Yeah.
It's sort of meaningless now because basically you go on a job search. Nobody really looks for Visual Basic talent much anymore. But all of those developers have sort of moved into the C# realm, or some of the new fancier languages. I want to try Flutter because I like to say it.
Flutter.
It's not Flutter. Wouldn't you want to be a Flutter MVP?
I would not. I'm going blazer route. I want to wear a nice, cool blazer. That's where I'm going.
Tell my mother I Flutter, and she says you shouldn't do that in public. It's like...
Yep. So now. Fast forward, now it's like we are in 2022 and .NET 6 was just released by Microsoft. What are you still working with .NET 6? Blazor?
Every day.
Working on? Oh, yeah? You want to share about what
so
these days?
It's fun, and this will give all of you in the audience something to live for, because I'm 67. I'm still doing C# a couple hours a day. I do SQL Server stuff at least 5 or 6 hours a day. I'm 100% work from home. I've got 2 major clients I work with now. One is a really large. I work on very large websites. So I work in the human resource area. So like this week, I worked on Amazon, MasterCard, FedEx, Microsoft. That's my standard day, is working on their websites. And I do a lot of content management. And what that means is almost all fancy websites are database driven. Yeah. And when you get into the human resource area, they get quite complex because everything you show on the screen has to be essentially role based. What a manager sees is going to be different from what a line employee sees, and all of that is database driven. And you have little bits of HTML, and it says this is what you show to the managers in Asia. This is what you show to the managers in Europe. So a lot of my job is to manage all of that data and make sure that it is correct and it can respond quickly. And to do that, I have to move data around a lot. And when I say around, it's like, oh, cool. We're going to have 2 databases. We'll have a staging database and a production database. Well, in my world, those databases could be on servers in different continents. And very likely there is extreme security. There are SOC 2 compliance issues, things like that, like who can actually look at data and who can move the data. And then in the job I'm doing, which, I work with hundreds and hundreds of databases and hundreds of websites, we're moving everything to the cloud.
Yeah.
Almost 100% Azure. So we have to be able to take data from like one environment, move it to another. And actually, this is something I'm working on this week, is I'm developing tools to move all of our portals from on-premise. And what on-premise for us means, we host virtual machines. And those virtual machines essentially build a private cloud for a client. So a client like FedEx, they would run their HR system on the machines that I help manage. And those are all in our data centers, which are in either Europe or Texas, or I think Tennessee, I think is the other one. Anyways, we have to be able to move the data around safely and securely. And I write a lot of utilities to manage the data. And all of those utilities are all in C#. And the way I write things, I like to keep up with the latest. So everything I'm doing is Visual Studio 2022. All the newer utilities I have are .NET 6 console apps. I notoriously hate Entity Framework, so I just find it too wordy and too mysterious. I like to be closer to the SQL language. So I use Dapper as my ORM, and I've been having a lot of fun lately with Dapper Plus, which is that's not a free ORM, that's an add-on. But what that does is, if you're familiar in the world of SQL, there's something called bulk insert. Well, this guy has written an excellent library that does bulk inserts and updates. So if you want to move data in large quantities, like from on-premise to Azure, you read in the data, you put it into you can use a list or an IEnumerable, any of those constructs. But you basically read that in. You might massage it, make some changes to it using link statements. And then you basically pass it to a bulk insert, and it automatically figures out how to get the stuff to the target SQL server really fast. And so I'm very pleased with that.
That's interesting. So looks like you're doing .NET 6, you're doing C#, I guess C# 10.
Okay, well, so the other part of my work, and there's actually two directions here. For the big company I work for, we have a lot of support people. We have client service managers. We have people that deploy and train customers how to use the portals. They have to be able to see essentially or navigate through all the content. And like I just worked on MasterCard site. It has 50,000 items of content worldwide. And so I build portals, or I build websites in Blazor that expose all of the back end SQL data in a way that our employees can go and find things and understand, like, okay, well, this page has 5 modules on it. One of them is a content block, and the content block has 20 items in it. And of those 20 items, 3 of them can be seen by somebody from the United States. So they have to be able to drill down and find all this stuff. And I build all that using Blazor. And I use the Telerik tools of Blazor.
Okay.
I don't know if they're the best, but they've really served me well over the last couple of years. So I'm pretty devoted to them.
Yeah, well, good thing with you is you're not going to have millions of people using the website. So just utility. So for you, those controls and make sense. And I'm assuming you use Blazor server because it's kind of similar to our old way.
Correct. Correct. In this environment, the Blazor WebAssembly wouldn't really add much value to us.
Exactly.
Now, I do have another client I work with. I was approached the middle of this year about looking at an application that a startup had written for an educational market, and they wanted me to see if I could get it working and fix it.
Yeah.
And I coerced them into essentially letting me rewrite the whole thing. And that originally that was an Angular connected to a C# backend, but it was written I think by an overseas outfit, and the C# backend was like circa 2015, really old techniques.
Yep.
And I said, well, yeah, we can sort of make this run, but this isn't going to be easy to support long term. So I convinced them to, let me show you a prototype. And I basically rebuilt their whole thing using SQL Azure, Azure App Service. I'm using App Insights. I'm using, that one's still C# 9 and .NET 5. I'm going to get it migrated up eventually. But that worked out pretty well. Yeah. And so that was fun. I learned an awful lot about Azure in the last 6 months.
That's great. That's good. So there is a related question here. Like when you look at C Sharp, .NET, performance and speed compared to you just work on Angular, for example. What's your thought? And also compared to even C Sharp, 5 or earlier versions.
Well, that's sort of a loaded question. The application that I rebuilt runs significantly faster than the one that was written in Angular.
Yeah.
Even though it's Blazor server. Now, a couple things going on there. They didn't really optimize their backend SQL.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I'm really good at.
Yeah.
So I gained a lot of performance by tweaking, indexing, stored procedures here and there, things like that. But when I first started this, Blazor gets faster every time they release.
Yeah.
And significant change when they got to .NET 6, which I haven't even deployed for them yet. So they're gaining a lot of ground on what you can do with Angular and products like that. And I find the simplicity and consistency of using C# on the back end and the front end is just a godsend for a developer. I don't want to have to, I used to be pretty good at Angular maybe 3 or 4 years ago. There's too many weird stuff you have to remember.
Yeah, plus you have to type a lot of code, and IntelliSense is not as friendly as Visual Studio, I would say.
Well, what made my big change in Angular, because I started doing that, and I used to teach classes in it and stuff, and 4 or 5 years ago, and then all the Angular guys started using TypeScript.
Yeah,
and I'm like, yeah, I know the guy who wrote TypeScript. I've met him a number of times at Microsoft conferences.
Yeah.
And I started using TypeScript, and I said, this is starting to feel a lot like C#.
Yeah.
And then Steve Sanderson invents this Blazor thing, and I'm like, oh,
this is even better.
C# and just forget about JavaScript.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I build pretty complex websites, and I might write like I think that application I wrote for the educational market has like maybe 20,000-30,000 lines of code.
Yeah.
And I would say maybe 100 lines of it are JavaScript.
Yeah, that's cool. I just built a simple app, Blazor. I'm learning Blazor just for fun. And I can even separate my
it's
C#
not
class.
fun, Mahesh. It's a serious tool.
Yeah, it is very much fun. Like if I can do it, I can build websites using Blazor. Anybody can do it because I do not like building websites. I do not like HTML. I do not like JavaScript. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, it gets more interesting if you're doing, if you're doing role-based authentication and doing that within a cloud environment. A lot of stuff you got to learn.
Yeah. Let's not bring the course issues in cross this. Clients, especially bigger clients, they make a big deal out of all these things.
Yep.
That's complicated.
Yes, for that app, I had to go through a security review.
Yeah. So yes, for the big clients. So everybody, welcome to the show today. We are talking to Bill Wolf. Bill Wolf is a veteran leader in community. He's Microsoft MVP. You are trainer. You're author. You still do hands-on coding, even though you are only 50 plus years old. Which you still do hands-on coding, C# and .NET. Everybody, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and we'll continue chatting for a little longer. So, Bill, I know you run a user group. It's one of the biggest user group in our area, in Philadelphia area. You want a little bit talk about that?
Yeah, I'm a little saddened by the state of the user community right now. My forte was running in-person conferences,
Yeah.
I did that for well over 20 years. I ran some of the larger code camps in the United States, and I was very active in the international level with the .NET community early on with an organization called INETA. And it's sad because COVID sort of put an end to all of that. We haven't done an in-person meeting in Philly in about, I think it's 23 months. We haven't done a code camp in 2.5 years. Now we did an online code camp last January, and that was fairly successful.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anything as interesting as going to a conference in person.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is, because I did that for decades. I went to conferences for Microsoft products, and pre-Microsoft, I was into the Apple world. Can you imagine that?
Oh, you were? Wow.
I went to the first Apple Fest in Boston. Wow. But that was a cool story because I was a school teacher then, and I was in my very early 20s, and I remember driving to Boston from Philadelphia in my little Subaru, and sort of sleeping in the car so I could go to Apple Fest. And I was just fascinated by all of that, and that was like pre-Microsoft days. That was that must have been in the mid 90s. But yeah, we don't have the big conferences anymore, like Microsoft Build. Mahesh and I have been at a number of MVP summits, which are in person, and we haven't done that in 2 years. We still run some online meetings using Teams, but we don't get anywhere near the attendance. We did a meeting recently, had 150 people signed up, 20 showed up for the virtual talk, and I think a lot of this, and it's probably good for the developers, but a lot of this is because all of these events now are recorded. Yeah. So there really isn't a lot of reason to attend things live. But if you don't attend them live, then you can't ask questions and get that back and forth that you normally get in a conference. Most of what I learn in an in-person conference isn't from the presenters. It's from the attendees. And I sit in the audience, I ask the guy next to me, what are you working on? Why are you doing that? And they point me to somebody else, and you just start networking with people, and you learn all sorts of fascinating things. And I guess, to a sense, you can do that today using tools like Twitter and all these discussion boards and all, but it just doesn't seem, to me, it doesn't hit home as much as doing all of this in person. So I miss all that.
And I think in person you also build relationships, like networks. Like most of us, our friend circle and people we work with are from in-person meetings, right? Like MVP Summit. That part I definitely agree. That's kind of missing. And I think there's also a big fatigue. Online events are happening, so many of them. So people are kind of.
That was the other thing I was going to mention. There's way too many sources. You can log on any day and say, I want to learn Blazor. And, you'll get a whole bunch of recorded talks. You'll get recorded training sessions. You'll get tutorials. There's so many things at your disposal. You can just teach yourself. But, we're all ending up everybody's sitting at home, staring at their screens, teaching themselves.
Yeah.
They're not talking to each other enough.
Yeah.
And Mahesh is part of the problem because he's great at Twitter. Once in a while, you just got to pick up the phone and talk to somebody.
Yeah. Well, I did call you, but you didn't pick up though. So you cannot blame me on that.
Yeah, but it's funny because we call each other for things like basketball.
Yes.
And if everybody's listening, that's an important thing to Mahesh and I. And something really important happened yesterday, and so we decided to contact each other about it. So.
Yeah, so let's talk about basketball, and maybe some people are interested in learning. So if you don't know, you're watching the show. My son, he's 19. He played basketball in high school. This is his senior year, so he's doing pretty good. So this reminds me, the biggest game is tomorrow, 7 p.m. In Malvern. You wanna come?
I'll see if I don't know. The Sixers are playing at the same time. Might be tough.
This is Sixers will continue playing. Oh, I want to see the Beard as well. But this is going to be biggest game. They're playing West Town. West Town has #1 player in the country.
Oh, really?
Yes. So
All right.
he's
Well,
17.
I'll chat with you later about that. Maybe I will join you. That would be fun.
Yeah, and
So
then
has
you
your
can
son
go have
been
it.
to college yet?
No, we have not picked college yet. Let's see. A couple of coaches talking to him. All D1. So let's see what happens. It's tough this year because of portal. So this year, last year, they've been rough because so many other people are available, senior guys. So let's see how things go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we will be picking up probably next couple of months.
All right. Well, don't wait too long.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the offers, right? If there's no offer, we can't really pick. That's where it is.
So do you want to tell the audience how much money you spent helping train your son?
Oh wow, yeah, that's a lot of money, and thousands of dollars every year. That's aside the money part, the time it involves, right? So, every day for last, I would say, 12 years, 13 years, it's like from 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock. That's kind of big bunch of your time goes there. It's a lot of work. Yeah, and it's still, it's not guaranteed that you're gonna get in a good college. We will see how things go.
I'm sure he'll get some kind of scholarship, but
Yeah, yeah. So with that said, you want to talk more about this code camp you're doing, Bill, right?
yeah, we're going to do
You
another
doing?
event. I worked on a pilot program last year with and the year before with Microsoft, and we were running Philly.net using Teams, and it works fairly well.
Yeah.
I know there's religious wars out there, and some people hate Teams, and some people think Zoom is the future, and they're clearly wrong. But in the enterprise world, Teams is pretty significant, and you can run a nice conference there. And we had, I think we had 4 concurrent sessions, and we ran it for 2 days, 6 hours each day. So that would have been 48 total sessions, and they were all recorded. People can go back to them later and watch them, and anyway, it worked out pretty well. So Teams is a good platform for that, and we're going to do that again on March 4th. Everybody here is welcome to attend. It's worldwide.
It's free. And it's free.
It's completely free.
Okay.
And because we don't do food and we don't rent a facility, we don't even have sponsors. There's, it's just speakers. And if anybody's listening here and you're well known in the world of .NET or SQL or Azure, by all means, come look for Philly.net and meetup.com/Philly-net and follow the links. And we're looking for speakers. It's 3.5 weeks away, and we would look forward to having you join us. Mahesh is going to talk, right?
Yes, definitely.
Excellent.
I'm thinking maybe blockchain or startups or something.
There you go.
Blockchain may be good. Maybe talk
blockchain
about
blockchain scares a lot of people because you make a lot of money, you're gonna lose a lot of money.
Yes. Yes, that's what we'll do probably.
All right.
So what are you thinking? You want to do speakers in person or everybody virtual?
No, everybody's virtual.
Okay. Wouldn't this be cool if we do a few people speakers in person?
We could try and coordinate that, but let me think more on that. I'd want to ask the other leaders of Philly.net if they'd want to commit to that.
Talk to them, and I think we will sponsor. We can talk offline on this actually.
Yeah,
but I'm interested in that, doing at least speakers dinner or something.
Well, we might maybe we want to have another event with more warning.
Okay.
And do what you have in mind.
Okay.
Still
Perfect.
think it's a valid idea.
No. Yeah. A lot of people wants to come. Speakers wants to come speak in person. So
Yep.
at least we can do a limited. Doesn't have to be big, and then it'll make a lot of speakers happy.
Yeah, and then people like Infragistics, Telerik might get involved and help us out on that. So,
Yep.
all right,
Perfect.
yeah. So that's what we're doing. Everybody working from home, probably bought better cameras, better microphones. You probably have a more interesting background than my kitchen ceiling right here. See, this is. I had to move my head.
Yep.
Isn't that a nice little light there that has?
It is. It looks very fancy.
Yeah, I put that up 30 years ago.
Wow.
I really like this fan here though. That's over top of our kitchen island.
Yeah.
And I have wait. I got to figure out how to move my chair here.
Yeah. What's that lady dancing there?
What's that?
What's that lady dancing there?
Okay. Well, that's important. My daughter is an award-winning artist, and that actually she made that by hand. I think when she was in 10th grade.
Yeah.
And she carved it out of wood, and it's actually made out of two kinds of wood. That's why it has the two colors.
Wow.
And she won a prize that year, and she was always into making figures of women with nice fancy clothes on, and she became a professional costume designer.
Oh wow.
And she does that for the theater. So
nice. That's great. You should
doesn't
talk
pay nearly as much as sitting home doing C#, but it's a fun thing to do.
You should get into NFTs. That's the craze going on. I'm not a big fan, but it's craze going on. We need to explain. So I think I have a topic in mind already for the CodeCamp.
Okay, good.
Unblocking blockchain world.
That's catchy.
Yes. All right. With that said, so everybody who's watching us, there is a CodeCamp coming up. If you are a speaker in .NET, Blazor, ASP.NET world, Azure, it includes anything Microsoft. Just go to this URL. Simon has posted in the chat. Apply there. It's only 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away, so it's coming fast. Apply fast. And then this is also going to be streamed live, free. So check out and put in your schedule.
All right.
Before that, anything else you want to plug in, Bill? Before we close this session down?
Well, it's really impressive the direction that Microsoft has taken with their development products. And, the honest truth is you don't really need user groups to get involved anymore because it's all open source. It's on GitHub. If you go to the .NET Conf websites, basically Microsoft puts on their own virtual conferences that sort of compete with what we used to do. And you can learn, lots of fascinating new stuff. It's worth looking at. If you're in a situation where you're using older Microsoft tools, have a stern talk with the manager or the architect. And it's like, what are you thinking? They make so much improvement each year. It's really worth taking the effort to move things from, Visual Studio 2017 up to 2022 and move up versions of .NET Framework because you're going to get significant improvements and a lot more syntax flexibility.
Yeah.
And that's worth your time and effort.
So what the direction, as you said, what I like about Microsoft is rather than, everything else they're focusing on productivity. They're focusing on how to get your application done faster. So a lot of things they are giving you as a packages. That's one thing they are obviously, and they're doing a lot of these releases much faster and focusing on like simple to learn, simple to write code, and also the performance. Yesterday I was watching a video of .NET 7. The improvement of Blazor in .NET 7 is amazing. So they're already way ahead of everybody else. So that's I like this direction where they're going with. I agree with
They
you.
are. And the other thing I would really encourage everyone on the call is learn Azure.
Yeah.
Because again, I work in Fortune 100 companies, and everything today is about cloud. Everything.
Yep.
And even if your enterprise is still doing mostly on-premise work, the clock is ticking. It's only a matter of time before everything goes to the cloud. And you want to be one of those people that know how to help in that effort.
Yeah, and you will be picked up because they're gonna ask, hey, who knows Azure?
Yep.
We're gonna move to Azure.
Yep. So
Yeah.
learn App Insights, learn Azure Monitor.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what those things are, go Google it. You can Bing it if you have to. But yeah, you want to find out, how do you make things run fast in the cloud?
Yeah.
How do you make them secure?
And how to save money and how to save
That's
money.
where the money is. And I just recently read an article, Mahesh.
Yeah.
And somebody basically did surveys of the top professions.
Yeah.
And other than being a doctor, I think the top salary was being a enterprise architect,
Cloud architect in future.
cloud architect. Yep.
Yep. And cloud security architects are actually hard to find.
They are. Most of them have been locked up. Yes.
Yep. Yep. All right. So that gives me another topic. I'm going to submit 2 topics for CodeCamp. One will be on cost optimization in Azure. That's already talk is ready for
That's
me.
an excellent topic because people are absolutely clueless.
Yep.
What it takes to run a website. It's like, I'm working with this small startup company, and they're thinking like, oh, $10 a month to run my website. It's like, no. No, if you want to run an enterprise website, it's hundreds of dollars per month.
Yep, especially if you have a SQL server in the background. Good.
Absolutely. And can't we go to AWS? It's cheaper, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like, lady, SQL Server on AWS costs a lot more than it does on Azure.
Yep.
Do the math.
So we learn hard way. So we migrated C# corner to Azure. And in the beginning, we were using SQL Server, obviously got the enterprise and then migrate to developer. It cost us fortune. Now we are using SQL Web. That's saving us a lot of money. So it's just because we don't really need all the services enterprise does.
Right.
So we cut our cost from, I say, annual, I don't know, some 30,000 to like a few thousand, because it costs only $1,000 a year. And C# corner is running on just one SQL server.
Sounds like a winner.
Yep. All right. So, Bill, that was awesome. We learned a lot. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us this Friday, hanging out with us. We will do this again next Friday.
And see if I can get.
What is that?
There's my MVP jacket.
MVP. Yep.
Remember when they used to give out jackets?
Yes.
Back in the day.
Yes, that was. I still have my jackets. I wear them.
I don't do that anymore. So
no. So last question before go. Anybody who's watching us, if they want to become a Microsoft MVP, what do they have to do?
I think today you have to have a strong online presence. Mahesh is one of the champions of that. He was one of the pace setters, one of the first ones to have an international website for these products. But you gotta be with a strong online presence that and provide something that helps other developers. Some people become MVPs because they're really good coders, and they get involved in GitHub and they do open source pull requests, and they actually make changes that the product team finds valuable. You don't become an MVP because you're the best programmer at your company or even in your city. You become an MVP because you help others in some fashion. And that's either by helping the product team with code or by helping with training or websites like C# Corner where people go to learn.
Yeah,
That's
writing
really what
articles.
the MVP program's about.
Yep, writing articles, sharing. But I think key is that you should always be sharing on newer technologies, because Microsoft picks MVPs on those only. So if you go back to older technology, they kind of don't care about it.
Yeah, you don't want to be the smartest guy on Visual Basic these days.
Yes. You can be the beginner on Blazor.
But I still want to be a Flutter MVP. I swear to God.
Okay, go for it. I'm not. I think Joe writes a lot of Flutter. Joe Goodhart.
All right.
Yeah. All right. It was nice talking to you. I'll catch up. I'll probably give you a call a little later to discuss this other things.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Everybody, thank you so much. I will see you next Friday.